Alright, cool. I'm taking a break from editing and figured I'd come out and play with pipes for a while. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a couple of the pieces for the water manifold and just kind of see how that goes. I wanted to do a couple test pieces just to get a feel for the process so that when I have a good day, I'm not blindsided by some random thing that I just don't know. I've not done a lot with this kind of thing in general. I have seen my dad do it a few times, and after reading the instructions, what he was saying made more sense. I should have paid a little more attention at the time, I guess. You want to make sure your pipes are cut nice and squarely so that you have as much glue surface as possible. The fittings have a little bit of a taper to them, so when you push things together, they'll kind of find their own home, and it's not going to be all the way in necessarily. So, for instance, if you look inside here, you see that line. That's where the pipe will push into, but it won't get all the way in probably. So there's a little bit of a taper, so when you push things together, it'll get to a point where it'll stop. And it'll have really good friction. And if you're not where you want to be, you're probably going to have a hard time moving it. So you kind of want to be lined up as you push it in. A lot of fittings that wouldn't matter, but I'm putting in valves and T-fittings and elbows, and I want things to be kind of true to each other. What's kind of throwing me off a little bit on this today is I need to build all of the plumbing first and then build the tanks around the plumbing. So it seems kind of backwards. You wouldn't plumb your house first and then build the house around it. But because these are going to be poured concrete and hand-formed concrete, the plumbing has to be there first so that the concrete can set up around the plumbing. Alright, so that's where we're going. I live off-grid and I do not have access to running water on the property. I've got a 200-gallon water tank that I can put in the back of my truck. I go into town, I have a water account, I can haul water back to my property. What I'm building for this video is a water manifold system that will let me connect various tanks together so that when I get home with a tank full of water in the truck, I can just connect a hose from the truck to the manifold, open a valve, using gravity only, no pumps right now. Let the water flow out of the truck tank through the manifold and then into one or several of the tanks that are on the manifold. If that was the end of it, that's kind of overly complicated. The other part of the system I'm going to use for rainwater harvesting. So I'll be setting up eave troughs off of the bus, and then as I build other buildings I'll have eave troughs on them, and they can all feed back into the manifold, which will then feed to the tanks. Once that's in place, then I can hook up a water pump to the manifold and use that to feed my shower, my washing machine, a sink, maybe a water filter system for drinking water. So the manifold itself is what's going to tie each of the systems together. So I'll have the truck tank, a series of valves, starting with one storage tank, and then as I get money I will buy more tanks. I'm also looking at building concrete tanks, so a lot of the design that's going into this is so that I can have the plumbing in place, have a riser pipe coming up from the bottom, and then forming a concrete tank around the plumbing. The process for building the concrete tanks, I saw a video on YouTube a few years ago, and I just was fascinated by the process where they're using some rebar and chicken wire and hand forming the concrete over the chicken wire such that when it cures you end up with a tank that's only maybe 2 inches thick that can hold up to 500 gallons. I guess my thinking is I'll buy one plastic tank first so that I have something, and then I can experiment with building a concrete tank. It's a pretty simple looking process. If I find that building with concrete is just not working for me, it's too expensive, it takes too much time, I can't get it to work, I can just buy plastic tanks as I have money and connect them to the manifold, and the rest of the system should work just as well either way. So that's kind of basically what I'm working towards here.
and the rest will be on the video. Thanks.
Okay, this is kind of a stopping point, I think. So if we simulate that's coming out of the tank, that tank, we would take the green hose over yonder, connect it to the fitting that would be there, and the tank has that black fitting on it already, like so. And where I go to get water has a matching fitting also. So I'm setting this up basically with male, male, and my green hose has female, female, okay? So that way I don't have to change any fittings. I use the same hose to fill in town that I used to empty, transfer, whatever here. From there, except for the black fitting which is threaded on, it's all glued all the way down. And this is a 10-foot piece. And I'm leaving it like that for now because I'm going to put a valve between this leg, which is the fill leg, and the manifold. So there will be a T-fitting here. So what I will do, I'm going to take one of these that I've already built, and that'll be my stand-in, so I can visualize. So that'll be just like that. Right. So basically just like that. I may copy those basic dimensions. It's actually really close. Okay, I want to be able to shut off the hydrant. So if I'm not filling, nothing's coming back out of it, so I don't backfill. Plus, anywhere there's a long feed, if I break something, what I want to do is sort of like setting general quarters. Have everything shut unless I'm actually using it. That way, if I have a break, I only lose one tank or one something, okay? So if I'm not using the hydrant, shut the hydrant off. Just do that. That way I don't have any backflow problems, not so much contamination, just so I don't lose everything. I have one valve going down to the domes, which is also going to feed the big tank. It's so I just have the one valve here to separate top from bottom, basically. One valve for the hydrant. I'm thinking go 2 inch down to 1 inch at coming off the manifold towards the bus, and then do a 1 inch feed to the bus, because I don't need 2 inches coming to the bus. I don't need 2 inches for any of this, but it's just kind of sexy. So, all right, things are going relatively well. What I'm doing, I'm in the stage now where I'm gluing the individual pieces to what's going to be the manifold. I guess in a way it seems like the manifold should be the long straight piece, which it would be until you put the T's in it. So manifold goes this way, tanks will be here. So this is the riser. I'll put a tank on that. Since I didn't want to work down in the trench, I used some scraps of wood to lift everything up, get it in position, make the measurement for how long each piece was going to be, cut it, and I'm gluing as I go. There's going to be one more piece coming off this way, and I'm waiting until I'm done so I find a scrap that's about the right length so I don't have to make a special cut just for that. So I want to do a short piece off of here and cap it, and then later on I'll cut the cap off, put a valve on, which will go down towards where the domes are going to be eventually. I'm glued up to this T is glued now, and I'm trying really hard to get everything in alignment, and so far I'm doing pretty good. The trick is, how do you get this to stand up? Because it just wants to roll over. So what I come up with, I took a couple of my little workbenches that I've made, and I set them side by side. The pipe is still loose, and I can slide it to make the alignment, all right? But it'll basically hold its position in the vertical sense. I mean, primer is first, that part's easy. But the instructions on the can have you priming the socket first, and then you prime the pipe. Assuming I read that right. And what I find is the primer seems to be breaking down the gloss on the pipe. I think maybe something. Okay, so you prime the pipe, and you prime the socket one more time. Just have a clip around. Put the lid back on so you don't stain all your dirt purple. Now you change the order. Cement on the pipe first. This is kind of snotty looking stuff. And go around a couple times. I'm going well past the mark. Because what I found on a couple of the other ones, once it's wet, they slide on further than they did when you marked it. So prime it and glue it further than what you think it's going to go, so that if it does go further, you get a lot more glue surface. It's going to be really tough to redo these after the fact. So I'm trying to get them as good as I can with my very limited knowledge of how this stuff works. Okay, now that I expected. Slide it in. Alright, we're almost at the mark. That's pretty good. Good. So by doing that, I managed to keep the hydrant sticking straight up. So I'm going to leave those where they are for now and build the next sections. Let's see, try to find a spot to sit, make it easy on yourself. Puff the smoke there. Let's sit on the scorpion. Alright, primer first. The way I figured, you don't get no bonus points for making this difficult, so. Like these pieces I built on the bench. And then bring them over as assemblies. I can shut it off and not lose all the water. That would be sad. Put your foot up there. Good. Now the next one. These I can twist them a little bit. Actually on this I'd have to twist it this way. That might be something to think about for next time is do your pipes in order such that you can still twist them putting them together. Because it's going to be awkward to work with that 5-foot long pipe. But it might be okay too. I think that's a good stopping point. I got the 4 feed pipes glued. Hydrant is glued. I got 4 valves in place. I want to do the risers, but I think I'm going to wait until I get them down set and then figure out how high I want them to be. And I think it's easier to visualize when they're down. I kind of have an idea, but I don't need to cut them extra long and then cut off 6 inches again. I got a little piece laid over here that will come out of the T, and then I'd put a next valve on there. So I'm torn on that between putting a short piece and a valve or putting a long piece and a cap. The long piece and the cap is cheaper because I don't need the valve probably for a year. The only thing I could think of adding the valve on there so I could drain the pipe if I needed to, because this is kind of the low end, so this would be a natural place to drain.